All right. Hello, Allison. How are you?
I'm good, Walter. Hey, thank you so much for doing this.
Sure, sure. I can't tell you how what a relief in a way it was looking at your film, which I've seen now probably five or six times,
Oh,
showing it, screening it myself and then showing it to friends. To to look at a film of that length without any human beings in it.
yeah.
Somehow we're so saturated with humans and the problems of humans and what is the effect of the political situation and the internet, all of that noise kind of. And to begin the film in black, and then to only hear these strange sounds of which become the hoof beats of the donkeys, the three donkeys, and then you're plunged into this. It's almost like you're on another planet somewhere. Which I don't know. Was that partly your intention?
Well, I was found. Have you been to the Atacama Desert, Walter, in
I've
Chile?
never been to the Atacama
Oh,
Desert. I've been to
oh,
the Sahara, um, and I've been to a place called the Dunes of the Stars in the middle of the Sahara. So, I'll use that as an equivalent.
yeah. Well, the Atacama for me, I haven't been to those deserts, but it is. Uh, I've never seen anything quite like it. And scientists in the north do tests, apparently for that it's equivalent to Mars. Certainly in the northern Atacama, nothing like to record sound. There's no sound. There's apparently no living. Of course there is, but
Yeah,
there's something so wonderfully surreal about it and alive. It's like a dream for me. And
yeah.
so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but the that 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 world is like, which is really where the title comes from, that sort of perfect strangeness of discovering the world for the first time, or that's what it inspires in me.
Yeah.
And so that yeah, so that place has a special, yeah, dreamlike
So
quality.
your previous film, the Cielo, which was about the observatories and the world that surrounds it, that must have obviously given you the idea for this film.
Well, in a way, yes, but I mean, to make a long story short, I had to, after doing Cielo, I had to deliver a short film. And I thought in the same region, but the challenge was how could I do something that felt completely different, but also came from that region.
Yeah,
So I wanted to, that voiceover in Cielo was such a challenge for me. So I wanted to do one, I had many objectives, but one was no text. I wanted to create something that was, anyway, it was inspired by many things, but inspired by my first experiences in the observatory, which were arriving when there were no scientists. Everybody was asleep, and it felt like, and I was walking through the observatory, it felt like these giant beasts, giants,
yes,
were asleep because they're big domes, they're asleep, but they were alive. And it
yeah,
and it made me think of myths in Scotland, about, those standing stones coming to life
right.
at midnight and then at dawn, and dancing, and then at dawn they become stones again. And it felt like that was an experience with the observatory coming to life at night, of course, with the stars and dancing.
Yeah.
And then it was also,
The feeling I got the first time and then on subsequent viewings is, especially at the beginning, is that whatever civilization built these things is now gone. In other words, this kind of Stonehenge type feeling, and the only living things in this part of the world are a rabbit, an eagle, and a coyote, I guess, and these three donkeys. And the natural world of animals is coming to kind of investigate these strange, not quite monoliths, but let's call them that. And of course, that's the feeling. I mean, if you know anything about astronomy, you know, okay, these must be telescopes. But are they active? And then the wonderful it's not exactly a surprise because there's this wonderful section which lasts maybe 2 or 3 minutes where they start somehow making noise. There are these weird clanks and cries which seem to be mechanical, and then they and then they become musical. So, and those wonderful shots of these giant ears of the donkeys with such expressiveness to them, and then you know, well, something's going to happen here, and then of course, right as the day begins to go down, then of course the eyes wake up and but you never see any human beings. You know, this is it's an autonomous waking of this intelligence, which is looking at the world. But are there any human beings behind it, or is it on autopilot? And the wonderful thing about it is the poetry of the whole piece allows your mind to wander into these speculations about what is going on here.
Oh, well, hey, thank you. That I mean, that's what I wanted to create something that felt so what would I say? Maybe a uncontrived simplicity of a story that had many of those layers for you to imagine and think
Yeah,
and reflect and yeah, and you, given your astrophysics background, you know, all the interior shots, I mean, we did the exterior shots in an observatory called Lucia, and the interior shots were in Paranal, a much more modern observatory. And just as an aside, those were instruments that had never been filmed before. So it was really an honor because our breath and our, you know, they were in cases, most of them, or the delay lines, those carts, you know, they go through tunnels and communicate through tunnels so that you know they're intercepting starlight, but it's usually dark. So
yeah,
it was just
yeah.
an extraordinary honor to be able to film too.
There's that wonderful shot of the sunset that you have where the stars are moving. It's a time lapse,
Yeah.
and the sun, which is this tiny little dot on the horizon, and then the beautiful music, almost like gamelan music, is going along with it. And that there's a fantastic low chord that hits right at that moment, which you know, very, very fantastic image.
Oh, thanks. That was, I had such a wonderful time working with, well, all my crew, but since you're speaking about the music, the composer, who's a hurdy-gurdy player. And,
Hmm.
and so it was hurdy-gurdy, tuba, and these bell-like things that were, I called them bells, that were made for him, and this piano or something or other, too, I've forgotten the name, but he, all the sounds, just so you know, all the sounds inside in that third part when the observatory dances, there's not one observatory sound. It's all hurdy-gurdy. It's all
Yeah,
instruments. And
fantastic.
he listened to things, of course, but I
Yeah,
asked him
yeah.
to listen, but
I
yeah.
just have a nerdy question about the sound of the hoofs of the donkeys. How did you manage to get such beautiful sounds from those?
We tried the first. We had two short shoots, and the second one I actually went. I was recording myself, but it was even for sound records. Second, as you well known with all your experience, but it was impossible. It was really hard, at least on our tiny crew, to how to record, how to
Right.
hooves individually, right, with these three donkeys. So that was an experiment that was really impossible. So I went to an amazing We used some of that, of course, and lots of the sounds of the donkeys we recorded. But we went to, there's a place called Footsteps Foley in Ontario, and they
Yeah,
kindly did the most of the sounds to get.
yeah,
But we gave lots of references because there are these beautiful, different textures that I wanted to
right.
capture. So we had lots of reference sounds, and
Well, yeah, it was beautiful work, that just from this kind of microscopic perspective on the sounds. So give my congratulations to them. There's also this wonderful moment, I guess, which is captured in the poster for your film of the laser beam. First of all, igniting and going up to some place in the universe from the observatory, and then these fantastic, almost galactic shots in themselves of the big eye of the donkey. In this one shot, you see the reflection of the laser beam in that eye.
yeah, yeah, well, all the shots of the eyes, it's as you know, it was well, one, it was of course very difficult because to shoot and not get our reflections in the eyes, of course,
Yeah,
they're just like
yeah,
complete mirrors. And but we also discovered when I first, because one of the other starting, well, there were many starting points in terms of the film, but was there were often donkeys, many donkeys at this particular observatory, La Silla, where we filmed with the donkeys. So there's
yeah.
sometimes you'd arrive, Walter, and there'd be 20 donkeys. But
Oh,
anyway, so I went back to Montreal with this DOP, and we just put a simple light on a donkey's eye. And to our surprise, some of the donkey's eyes were like galaxies, like they had colors
yeah,
and shapes and these kind of holes. And with your imagination, you could imagine a galaxy. Others weren't
yeah,
like that, but so that was a real discovery.
yeah.
Yeah, and wow, there were so many. It was it was an extraordinary process.
Right. So I was going to ask how you got the idea for the putting the donkeys in the situation, but you've just answered that they're just endemic to this environment.
Exactly. And I thought, well, thinking because I had to deliver this film, I wanted it to be completely different. I thought, well, how do they see this universe, you know?
Yeah,
And then it was fascinating. You might be interested in this, but is that I talked to scientists about how donkeys hear and how they see.
yeah,
Of course, we tried to replicate the more panoramic vision with our lenses and replicate the vision of the observatory too. But how they see and hear, because they apparently have this kind of filter on their eye, like some cats and dogs do. So what's it called, tapetum lucidium or something. So they may see. Apparently they see better than we do in the night.
uh-huh. Yeah,
So that was, anyways, a point of departure of imagining that they see better than we do.
yeah. No, there's a curious, I don't know what you would call it, the psychological effect watching when you have a close-up of the donkey's eye and these mysterious sounds are happening early in the film. The shot of the eye and the combination of the sounds makes you, me in this case, the viewer, think more that he is or she is listening. So even though you would think, well, no, a photograph of the ear would show listening, but yes, they do in a certain way because they're very expressive. But
Right.
the eye is when you show an eye and you hear a sound, it somehow sinks the sound deeper into the mind. In other words, the donkey is now trying to make sense of what it's hearing. Whereas when you photograph an ear listening, it's just the idea is the sound is going in. But with the eye, it has a more I don't know, mental aspect to it. It was very curious.
That's great to hear. We really tried with the music and sound. I wanted the music to not, to feel improvised, to feel like it was
It
fresh.
does definitely feel that way.
Oh,
Yeah,
great. And
yeah,
but it was, as you know, it's a lot of work to do that. So it didn't have association. So you didn't feel like you were coming into this horror, this a dangerous place, or how could it feel? And also with as you well know, um, is the placement, all the delicate placement. So it never feels illustrative or,
right.
you know, so yeah, yeah.
Did you name the donkeys, or were those the real names?
They were,
Paloma, etc.
yeah, they were the real names.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Paloma, Ruperto, and Palai. Yes.
yeah,
And they were wonderful. Paloma, in particular, the white one, he would put his head, on your chest, and he liked
yeah,
to have his ears stroked. So,
yeah.
so
I sometimes wonder what our world would be like if we humans had very mobile ears. Our ears are just fixed trumpets. They don't, I mean, you can kind of wiggle them a little bit, but nothing like the donkey. So what would it be like? I guess James Cameron investigated this in Avatar. The Avatar people have ears
yeah,
that move around. So our eyes move, humans' eyes move around, and that's very expressive, but our ears are fatally kind of stuck. And it goes some way to, there's a curious fact that we have many words, dozens of words for different ways of seeing. We squint, we stare, we gaze, we gawp. You can go on and on for a couple of dozen terms, but there are no equivalent terms for the way we hear. There is hearing and listening, but we know emotionally that there are many different ways to listen to a sound,
yes,
how sounds affect us, but the language doesn't support that. And my theory, for what it's worth, which was activated by looking at your film, is that it's because our ears are not expressive. If they were expressive, I mean, you can look at a cat with its ears flapped down and you know what the mood of the cat is and what it's paying attention to. And obviously with the donkeys, with this huge collectors, it's very similar.
yeah. Oh, I never thought that way. I'm fascinated though, but how their eyes are on the side too, right? It's very hard to sneak up onto a donkey
Yeah,
or horse, right? Because of their eyes.
yeah, that's because they're not predators.
Yeah.
They have to have almost 360-degree vision, which is something like what we're doing with telescopes. As a creature, we have built these different eyes to look at the universe in a more expansive way than we can possibly do with our own eyes. I mean, and that's another takeaway I got from the film, which is the the responsibility of perception. I guess we're put on this planet, and by we, I mean all forms of life. And yes, we have to survive and we have to procreate and all of those other things. But we also are obliged really to perceive, how the donkey perceives the world is unique, and it's not the same as how a human perceives it, as you have just been saying. And it's great to have a film that implicitly and not in any overt didactic way, but just implicitly talks or communicates the idea of perception, that these telescopes are a form of perception. They are a sensory organ, in a sense, of humanity looking at the universe. And here are donkeys, which are mammals, and they are looking at at the telescopes, looking at the world, and the juxtaposition of those two things is a real significant takeaway from me from the film.
Oh, thanks so much, Walter.
Also, loved the fact that you took advantage of those convex traffic mirrors. Uh, that I don't know. There are three or four shots of them. The last shot on the film is one of those where the donkeys are exiting at the beginning of the new day, and the comparison with the convex shapes of the telescope domes and the convex shapes of the donkey's eyes. It's just, those mirrors are another way of seeing, and that resonated deeply.
Oh, that's great. It was so much fun filming Walter because it was like we were like I really wanted to explore. I don't know if you'd call them the elements of cinema, but just light, movement,
Yeah,
shadow,
yeah,
reflection, sound, music, no text. But so we were like little kids, with those mirrors, etc. And the time lapse, I did most of the time lapses, but the time lapse, like people think, oh, it's Photoshop, but there's no Photoshop at all. It's simply that I don't know if you remember the time lapse where there's a telescope inside a mirror at night, and
yeah,
and that's not Photoshop. That's simply that I could see that at night, and
yeah,
and then you can see that the stars on the outside are going one direction, but within the mirror they're going the opposite direction.
yeah,
So of
yeah,
course we were playing, and then of course the eye to the big radio telescope dome, which has all the Milky Way crossing it. It was
yeah,
just that those associations were really
yeah.
really
I mean,
fun.
there was another felicitous juxtaposition that the stars and the galaxies have this kind of a geared move, obviously, because the Earth is going around the sun, and it's rotating on its axis.
Yes.
Um, and the machines that are recording that are necessarily also geared mechanisms. So both the mechanisms themselves and the universe are these interacting gears. But here we have the donkeys who are not that way. They are, in a sense, free agents to wander around and scratch themselves up against a pole and to lie down and turn over and scratch their back. And, that it's the juxtaposition of non-living, I guess, if you just looked at the clockwork mechanism of the universe, it is being judged by gravity and inertia. Um, but life is not that way. Life is this little spirals that do whatever they want to do. And putting those two things together was really nice.
Oh, great, great.
I also, speaking of time lapse, when you at the end of the first day, you do a time lapse of the shadows crossing
Yeah.
the mountains. And there's a moment pretty early on where the shadow itself looks like the head of a donkey. It's
Yes.
got ears and a kind of a snout and everything, and then it resolves into, it goes away. But for, 5 or 6 seconds, you are looking at the head of a donkey in shadow.
I'm glad you saw that because some people do and some people don't. And when we discovered it, we shot it and we couldn't believe it. We thought we can see a donkey there, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the scientists, I had really lucky. I had two scientists that just gave us carte blanche, which is very unusual in this film. And anyway, they after we'd shot, they sent a photo and they said, "Didn't you see that there's a head of a donkey here?"
right.
Because often, anyway, and we'd seen it, but that's not manipulated. Nothing's manipulated. That was there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a fantastic piece of luck.
Yeah,
So much
exactly.
in film just depends on chance and luck, and oh, let's look what's happening. Let's take advantage of that, and
Absolutely.
then you do that, and then that once you establish that, that leads to something else that you never expected to bump into when you started making the film.
Yeah, which is so magical.
Yeah. I have a theory that you begin every film with one certainty and a million questions.
Yeah,
How is it, but there's some core spine that you're trying to achieve. And in the end, if, the film is completed, you have answered those million questions, but you also give the audience one question that you don't answer, which is, whatever the core happens to be. And that's a present that you give to the audience because that allows them to participate in the creation of the film when it gets projected.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.